Hi, I'm Nina Bailey. I'm the European Design Lead at Formica Europe. I've been in the company now for 3.5 years. So my background is working in textile design. So I originally did my degree in textiles, and then I started my career in the flooring industry. So I've worked for a couple of different big companies designing products, and also working closely with interior designers and architects to help specify and design how they use the products. So now my role at Formica as the European Design Lead is very broad. So I'm now designing products and ranges for all the different countries within Europe, and developing those products from scratch and working with our suppliers around the globe.
My name is Renee Hytry-Derrington. I'm the Managing Principal of Design. I've actually worked with the Formica brand for about 32 years now. I started working internationally in 2000, worked with our divisions in Europe, in Asia, Australia, New Zealand, India, and of course my home region of North America. I actually reside in the USA, just north of Chicago. I'm passionate about design. I started out in architecture as my first degree, went to work in the plumbing industry with Kohler Company, fell in love with that interface between manufacturing and interior design, working in their industrial design team when I was recruited by Formica. And it's been a lovely, lovely journey with the Formica brand. The last 18 months have been incredibly challenging, but actually inspirational, because it did lead us to think of different ways of designing. For instance, in the end of 2019, Nina and I were together at the London Design Festival, just gathering all these lovely concepts and ideas that we use for inspiration for our product development. Then comes the turn of the year. I'm in London because I'm starting our forecasting process, which we do every 2 years. I'm at Stockholm Furniture Fair being inspired by furniture, and then boom, the world just shut down in March. So it was a bit crazy because we were all in with our cycles and our planning and doing development work. And we had to rethink how we were going to go for the future, which was very, very challenging. And I know, Nina, you experienced this also.
Yeah, definitely. I think, not being able to suddenly attend the different trade fairs and things was extremely challenging. And I think what we had to really turn to was what was available online. So the likes of our WGSN forecast and the likes of different webinars and podcasts. I think in the design community, everybody sort of tried to group together to put as many events and things on as possible, so that we could all try and be as transparent as possible and see what everyone was doing and how we could keep in touch across all these different platforms and things. So for me, I've sort of, even though this whole period of time has been, working from home and away from my beloved colleagues, it has been tough, but at the same time, I feel that discussions and conversations have been so considered and thought out, because we've had to always plan everything rather than, constantly bumping into each other in the hallways of the offices. So there has been pros and cons, definitely, to the whole situation.
It was interesting because not only do we need to be inspired as designers, we also have customers that we need to inspire. I work with a lot of the major furniture manufacturers that are doing, product design for new desking systems and new concepts for interiors. We work with many interior designers and architects around the world that are planning spaces for the future. And what happened when COVID shut down and everybody's wings were clipped is people were hungry for intel. Like Nina said, we as designers. What was really fun over here in the US, because I had this international eye and, working with Nina and being at the trade fairs, I took all of my iPhone photos and I started crafting these pieces that shared the intel that I saw with our customers. Our North American division actually got way behind that and developed a whole WebEx program that I was able to record not only 100% design and the various London shows, as well as the Stockholm Furniture Fair. We became the inspiration for our customers, just taking what we have learned and what we were thinking about and pushing it out. And it was an extremely successful program.
Yeah, I agree. Over in Europe as well, we tried to do similar things and still make sure we had close contact with our customers without sort of actually going to physically see them. So in terms of, showing and sharing what we had been inspired by before the lockdown period, it was really interesting to sort of touch base with everybody, all of our sort of customers that we would usually have seen quite regularly, and share with them what our thoughts and ideas were going to be, and sharing new product ideas as well. And I think it's, in that sense, it's been really nice because we've had really quality time with the customers to give them that information that sometimes we couldn't always arrange because we're all so busy, that sometimes it's hard to arrange to travel halfway across Europe or halfway across the United Kingdom to go and see somebody. They don't always have the time to do that. So it's, in terms of this new sort of digital world being upon us, it's actually sort of worked to the advantage, I think, in some ways, of being a little bit more connected with the customers.
So not only did we share thought leadership via Zoom and all of these wonderful sort of digital tools that we can, have talking heads, we also in the US market were rolling out product introductions. During this challenging time, we actually rolled out a total of 4 product introductions, and we didn't stop. Even though we may not have been able to get into offices physically, we were thinking of creative ways to do launch parties. My customers that I deal with in the office furniture market, I had a wine WebEx where a local representative dropped off wine and goodies, and on Friday afternoon I did some trend presentations and shared with all of them, even though they were competitors, all together in one big sort of Zoom room, what we were going to be rolling out. And that was a lot of fun, just being creative about how you actually release a product during challenging times when you can't get into people's offices. And the feedback that we got was fantastic. People loved us coming into their living rooms. They loved talking with us while their dog was at their feet, or their kids were kind of pulling on their hemline saying, "Hey, mommy." And it was so humanizing. I think that's what I liked the best about this last 18 months, is that, we offer a face of who we are by talking and working and communicating from a home environment. It doesn't have the filter of, the office. It is actually something that was quite delightful to learn more about my professional customers and colleagues. So it was a lot of fun. We started our every 2-year trend forecasting with a visit with our valuable and lovely agency in London in January of 2020. And with that, we had developed our themes and color stories that we wanted to research. And that was fantastic. We had sort of working names, concepts, early adopter examples ready to go. And then, boom, the world changed. So we paused that forecasting for about 6 months because we wanted to capture how the world had shifted. And what was so unique about this is that it was the entire world that shifted. It wasn't the UK shifting or the US shifting or India shifting. The whole world was affected by this at the same time. So we did pause and then reevaluate that summer, which actually led us to shifting our themes that we were looking at. For instance, with the concept of safe haven, that was originally called cave or dome. And there our concept was more about having a luxurious space that you felt comfortable in, like feeling safe but luxurious. Once we had the change in the world, it became more important because home really did become our safe haven. And that led to the forecast colors that we are rolling out now, which is all about luxurious finishes, as well as how do we bring nature inside when we are in our safe haven. So it's just quite interesting to take our original concept and slightly shift it. Another concept we had, which we ended up calling Fresh Start, was actually all about how we wanted to reduce clutter in our life. That life was so complex, we were so busy, we were running around, everything was just so crazy that we needed to have a fresh start and sort of uncluttered life. Well, with the changes in the world, it also had this added aspect of cleanliness, safeness, cleanability that we wanted to add in, more of a clinical, technical aspect that we brought into the trend. And that really did impact the outcome that now we have the ability to roll out. So it's been really interesting to start the forecasting process, pause it, reevaluate, and then have something that is actually right for today's market.
I think in terms of general trends as well, I think what's been so unusual about the times is that people have had to become almost quite reactive to the times. And I think because obviously we were saying those shifts had to be made in the trend forecasting. And I think there has been a huge shift. And one of those shifts, I think, is that people have become a lot more intuitive with what they do and don't like, and have decided, how different colors are making them feel, how different products are making them feel, and starting to be a bit more individual and more sort of aware of their choices in a way. So I think that whole fresh start trend is obviously key for now, and we are emerging into this fresh start era of our new normal. And I think it's really interesting that whole theme was actually derived before we went into this period.
Now, I personally started traveling again, and I was going back to some of the same hotels that I did before the world changed. And it was kind of interesting because these hotels have wrapped themselves in the concept of cleanliness with stickers and badges and things like that guarantee cleanliness. What they're doing in the background, though, is their design staffs are working on what is the new hotel room look like. It's lighter, whiter, cleaner versus darker, formal, low lighting, which sometimes could have the tendency to hide the state of the cleanliness in the room. And I know that for a fact. There are hotel brands that are rethinking what they're going to look like as they remodel, and there is a lot of activity happening. Same for the furniture industry. People are starting to go back into the office, whether it is hybrid working where they choose to work from home 1 to 2 days a week. The environment they're going back into, they want to feel safe, especially in the major metropolitan areas where the employee needs to go through the whole process of public transportation, getting on the tube, getting on the buses, getting on the trains. Once they get to the office, they want to be guaranteed safeness. And you start to see things like touchless entries into offices. And even though there are less people in the office, people are given more square footage because they need to have that sense of safety with social distancing. Some offices are even considering how do they do tracing where people have been if there is a challenge in the future. So with that, the producers of furniture and the elements that go into space are rethinking. They're creating more unique barriers that are decorative but cleanable. So it's interesting because I found that they're thinking less about noise and sound absorption, and they're actually shifting more to hard surfaces that they know they can clean. So a lot's happening, and it's really exciting to see all of our customers and all of these people that are developing elements to go into interior spaces start to think about how to reimagine that interior. And it's happening. In the US, it's happening. It's just boom, things are just opening up. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting what you were saying about the offices, because I think before this whole period of time, we were always talking about this residential concept of, introducing the residential design into a commercial setting. And that was something that was really huge. And I'm still even now hearing certain companies and certain people talking about how we want to introduce that more homely vibe into our commercial offices. But now there's almost like an argument for a shift in that, and in that, we've been spending so much time at home in the comfort of our homes that actually when we go into the office, we want it to be quite a sort of corporate, sterile environment, so that we know that we feel safe and that it's a more sort of contrast to the homes that we've been spending so much time in. So I'm intrigued to see in the next few months how that residential trend, which was so huge and so sort of up and coming 18 months ago, how that really is going to play out into the next part of life.
It's interesting, there's almost a flip on residential. A lot of the furniture companies that I work with are thinking about people that would be hybrid working. They should not be sitting on a kitchen island, in a chair that's not ergonomic for long times. And we've all done that. We've perched on dining room tables and sitting on couches. If the work environment goes to hybrid working, going into the home, you need to have professional equipment. And there are major corporations that are allowing their employees to take their chair home, for instance, from work, or they're sending them like proper ergonomic furniture. So that, to me, that residential trend is actually shifting. And the office furniture producers need to think about how will their furniture be right-sized or fit in with the home environment. So it's almost like the residential is flipping back into the home.
So in my eyes, I think as we go into the future, we are still going to obviously want to see people face to face, because there's nothing better than, being in the same room with somebody. It's a much more personal experience. And I think obviously we're going to continue to do that. But now there's been this removal of a barrier of sort of unprofessionalism around being remote and digitalized. I think that is going to really incorporate itself into the way we work in the future as well. So I would say that I imagine we maybe will see people a little bit less still as we go into the future, but also we will still start to travel and see people more again. So I'm envisaging maybe sort of like a 50-50 of both scenarios, really. I think we've learned a lot from this time on how we can make the most of our time. So usually, we would attend numerous amounts of shows and fairs throughout the year. And it might be that becomes a little bit more considered. We might decide, if some are going to be digitalized, there might be some that we think are more important that we actually go to in person.
The trade show world is so inspirational because all of the smartest people and smartest companies are highlighting their latest thought processes through products. And that's really inspirational for us, because we at Formica need to have our materials work with other types of products within a space. So that is so inspirational. I will say the American market is opening up for trade shows. The famous NeoCon, which is geared to the office furniture market, that takes place in Chicago every year in June. That has been postponed to October, and so far it's going on. And that's something where they have protocols in place to handle people coming through. But right now, major companies are planning on exhibiting. So I'm looking forward to being safe, but connecting up and actually touching and feeling things. That's so important, the tactile quality, to understand how that feels. So I'm looking forward to that. Our major kitchen and bath show is going on also in January. So we are starting to see shows open up. What I like about the European trade shows is that some of the major ones have a sort of a every other year cycle or every 3-year cycle. And I would hope that continues on, because if we do that, that actually makes each of those shows actually much more inspirational, instead of if the cycle is going every year. So I'm hoping that in this kind of hybrid of digital versus real touch points, that we kind of balance it out, that we have the ability to do the digital shows and maybe not have an exhibition every year in the case of like the American cycles, but actually get to that point where we can pick up more of the European model and then combine it with digital, tidbits. There are so many opportunities to learn. Just look at your mailbox, your email box. There's so many opportunities to learn and see new products now digitally that we can keep up to date. But we still need that touch point. I mean, physically touch point. We need to like touch something every once in a while. So that's why I'm hoping our hybrid will start to even out as the world, comes out of the challenging times that we have had. For me, we now have a bigger toolbox to work and design for the future.
So for me as a designer, I think going into the future is a really exciting future for us. I think we have so many different avenues now that we can go down. And especially, I've been remote working at Formica for my whole time at Formica. So I'm always, traveling at home with customers. And I think what's so great about this next step is that everybody has kind of experienced that. They've experienced what remote working is like. So it's kind of really broken down these boundaries of, what is professional, what's perceived as unprofessional. And we now have sort of closer relationships and connections with our colleagues, with our customers, to just feel that we can say, oh, actually, that doesn't work for me. I'm going to have to call in on Zoom or whatever. Or, yeah, that's great. I can fly across to France to see you. And I just think that sort of friendship that we've been able to embody throughout this time has just made design for the future much more sort of flexible and adaptable, and we can be a bit more sort of open with each other about how we're going to be working. And I think that's going to make things much easier and much more exciting for the future.